Hi everyone, I'm Gabor. A few months ago, I bought some DDR5 memory modules for my desktop computer. Back then, those 16 gigabyte 5600 megahertz Kingston modules were 20,000 florins each. Now they cost 5 times as much. The reason for this extreme price hike is that the AI craze has started soaking up all the DDR5 memory chips. We've seen similar price increases before with graphics cards. The powerful graphics cards were simply being packed into crypto mines, which led to a shortage, and people kept buying them even though they were very expensive, and the price of graphics cards went through the roof. And of course, along with all this, the number of scams is also increasing. The rising cost of DDR5 chips has caused price hikes in other areas too, even though those don't even use DDR5 chips. However, there are a lot of scams here too. I clicked around a lot in online web shops and let myself get ripped off. So now I'm going to show you this so that you don't get scammed too. Let's get started. I'll show you what's on my desk. A 30 terabyte external drive for around $15, which even includes the cost of shipping. They have somehow managed to put a price point of approximately $5 on this 2 terabyte SD card. It's truly and completely unbelievable. A 2 terabyte flash drive is priced at approximately $5. A 1 terabyte SSD drive is priced at around $60. I honestly find it difficult to even begin to comprehend how any of this is possible. Right here on my monitor screen, you can clearly see my order. I ordered 1 terabyte. It's not very believable that they'd give you such a massive capacity for such an incredibly low price point, even though the shipping cost was included and it did eventually arrive. And right here on the screen, you can clearly see the pen drive's total storage capacity and the current price information. And if you take a close look, the physical label shows the exact same capacity as displayed on the screen, so that perfectly aligns with what we see here. They also generously included a small adapter, a little silver keychain, or whatever you might call it. And here you can see the actual pen drive itself in more detail. And if you look, I originally bought this unit at the local supermarket recently. And it is truly remarkable how much it looks like the genuine article. So really, when you look closely, the only thing missing is that they didn't bother to fake some kind of official brand label on the casing. But like I said, it has finally arrived, and very soon we will see exactly what it can do in a real test. Of all these, this is the most shocking. Look at the capacity, the price, and it's an SSD. True, an external USB one, but still an SSD. And I ordered the 16, but got the 30, which is already pretty strange. When this arrived and I looked at the label, I thought maybe I just bought an empty case that you can install an SSD into, and you could even put a 30 terabyte one in there, but in reality, it's empty. And when I opened it up, I found that, well, perhaps that is not the case. Maybe I actually managed to get an external case that really does have some kind of storage unit inside, and it even comes with a USB cable. To be perfectly honest, it actually looks quite decent and well made, actually. It has got a solid aluminum case with absolutely no rough edges to be found anywhere, so it really does look quite good. And honestly, it is just the price at first glance that makes this high capacity incredibly difficult for anyone to truly believe. I don't have any hard feelings toward AliExpress as a site. I shop there very often. The products are very cheap and the quality is relatively good, usually arriving within 2 weeks. But unfortunately, there are scammers uploading products like this, and AliExpress usually steps in these cases. There are a lot of complaints. And firstly, they remove the seller. And secondly, there's compensation. Just a few minutes ago, the courier rang the doorbell and delivered my AliExpress orders. The real reason I buy there is because things are at a great price. USB cable, also very cheap, headlamp, diode, USB charger, circuit board, and so on. I put the SSD under my USB microscope, and here you can see the top of the chip, and here it is magnified on my monitor. I checked, and this part was simply erased with a laser, so it was rewritten. The surface, so it is impossible for anyone to distinguish what kind of chip it actually is. And if I drag it over here, let's carefully examine the specific model type of the memory chip. You can see here, well, based on the printed type number, these two chips definitely can't provide the promised 1 terabyte capacity. you could actually install two more memory chips in those empty slots there. That is exactly what a full 2 terabyte version would look like. Why am I saying that this can't do what it says on the label? Let's see what the program called HDD Sentinel shows. I named the drive Fake. Its capacity seems to be fine. I've already written some data to it. Well, things are not quite okay yet. I am going to start a new copy process now by pressing F5 and then Enter. And at the very beginning of this operation, it really seems like everything is working perfectly fine. There's plenty of speed, the files are transferring across quite rapidly, but let's just sit back and wait for a little bit longer to see what happens. Here is the very first ominous sign that something is wrong. You can see that the write speed has suddenly dropped significantly. So let's check the test. And the drive is so incredibly sneaky that it deliberately misleads the testing software. It randomly writes data and reads it back. If everything is fine, that specific part will eventually turn a solid green color, and the part that's not okay turns red. This program can't be fooled by this drive either. It takes a significant amount of time to check a drive like this. The secret trick was finally revealed. This much data was written, and here the system dropped the chain. Significant problems started to occur right at this point. So, converting from megabytes, it can successfully store and manage almost 90 gigabytes. This little beauty, and I won't even use any other word for it because it is impressive. What the program does is systematically write files to the drive with this specific extension, and here you can clearly see the individual file size, every single one. The writing process is double checked, and it also randomly checks the previously stored data, so every trick gets revealed. And now the drive is connected to my computer via a standard USB 2.0 connection. So let's check the sequential write and read speeds. You can see them right here. Let's take a look at, say, this Western Digital SSD and compare the performance levels. Well, here it's about 380 megabytes per second. Here it's a bit more, here a bit less, but as I said, both values are roughly the same. Now, using the same adapter, the Western Digital SSD is connected, and the speed has increased, so it's higher than before. There's a proper M.2 SSD over there. We can check its speed too, and it can do about 10 times as much as this. Honestly, I just don't get it. Whoever actually wrote this capacity value here, how do they not feel completely ashamed? So this drive is a standard USB to begin with. I connected it to the port, and if you look closely here, Windows sees it as being pretty much fine. I've already written some test data to it before. You can see that clearly here too. So its capacity seems fine. Honestly, it took me a total of more than 2.5 full days just to write it all, because as you can clearly see, it's extraordinarily slow, almost like a snail crawling. You can observe its actual speed right here on the screen. Earlier, we checked what it could do with a standard USB 2.0 adapter. Remember, we saw a value of 380, but this specific one is only 15. So there's absolutely something seriously wrong here because it's just incredibly slow. It looks like you can write a bunch of data to it, and it looks like the full capacity is actually there. Let's investigate and verify what the actual real capacity truly is. Earlier, I showed you that I'd already written about 1.5 terabytes of data to the drive. You can see it from the remaining free space. But this is what's actually stored on it. I selected every single one of the folders and files, and this is the total size shown. Now look, even this doesn't quite add up, so let's use a specialized program to check the actual real capacity. Here's where the biggest scam is. Now, let's click here, and what's red doesn't exist. What's green does. So look at the proportions. This is how much actual capacity they sold you. This right here is all a massive and deceptive fraudulent scam. Most likely, I'll find a tiny 8 gig SD card hidden inside. Maybe they poured some kind of liquid or substance inside, so we can't see anything right now. But we'll definitely see something for sure very soon. There's this large piece of thick black plastic covering the components here. Well, there's actually a small SD card tucked away right inside, guys. Here is the SD card for you to see. So it seems they have decided to put a very similar kind of monster in here as well. But in this specific case, the monster's actual ability to write data lasted for a full 2 terabytes and even went all the way up to 30. It is truly unbelievable. Seriously, I just honestly don't get it. Don't the people who are responsible for making these things realize that sooner or later their little trick will be completely exposed to the public? Of course, maybe what they actually do is sell 1,000 units to unsuspecting people. Then, by the very time they finally get exposed to the public, it's really not a problem for them anymore, since they've already made a huge bunch of money off of it. They made absolutely sure here with a little tiny dot, a small glue dot, so the SD card wouldn't accidentally fall out, but I can still remove it anyway. Just like that. And here it is. You could already tell just from the slow transfer speed, and that's exactly why I said it's probably just the standard SD card hidden inside here. But they certainly did spend a good amount of money on the high quality aluminum material. It's got a really nice premium little aluminum case. It's quite thick too. Honestly, it looked very good. But this is what's really inside, so it's absolutely ridiculous. I think we're going to see something very similar with this one too. I'll put it in an adapter right now, and let's see what I get. They do include the adapter, it was right there on the box, inside of the original packaging. And if you take a close look at this specific SD card right here, I believe the scam isn't just that it is supposedly 2 terabytes in capacity, but also take a look at the suspicious branding. So I think they even intentionally misused the company's official name here, which really isn't cool at all. The card was eventually recognized as the D drive, but if I look inside a folder, this is what I see. Now, I didn't write files like this in there. They actually have proper names and so on. The card just created folders like this. How cute, which I simply can't enter. Here, I'm trying to gain access to the data, but I just can't. Here are some very suspicious files. Their file extensions definitely weren't like this before, but this is exactly where the clever trick finally gets revealed. More and more bright red dots start appearing everywhere. Appear. So this is the result. I click on close, and this report basically shows we're dealing with an 8 gigabyte SD card. So what they wrote on it, 2 terabytes, is a big scam, as we said. This was in the box. Here's the capacity value, and this is the included adapter and chain, probably the most valuable part of the package. I opened 3 various system folders on it and then started copying the data. It was a painfully slow and tedious process. So, looking on the drive, I see that there is 71 gigabytes of data, but according to the Sentinel software, there is 560, and Windows also shows about the same amount. So, it is quite clear that something is very clearly not adding up here from the very start. So, that's roughly the result. I got 3 green squares, the rest are red. Let's look at the actual capacity. We're dealing with about 8 gigs. Today's modern motherboards can accept these SSDs directly. That black component with the integrated heatsink you see there is an M.2 NVMe SSD. And actually, there is another expansion slot hidden behind the graphics card, and this is a PCI Express slot, which is located right here. So you might think you completely can't put anything in there at all. But in reality, there are specialized hardware adapters, like this specific one, for example, though its overall stability is a very good question, but let's just set that aside for now. So you can actually plug this little compact adapter panel into that hidden PCI Express slot. Now, and if we specifically want to expand our existing motherboard with additional high-speed NVMe cards, one viable option is that if there is a hidden PCI Express slot available like this one, we can carefully insert this adapter, connect the necessary cable, and then neatly install our NVMe SSD. Furthermore, if there is a wide, full-size PCI Express slot located on the motherboard that is not hidden or obstructed, then we can easily expand it with 4 dedicated lanes of bandwidth right away without any extra hassle. You really need to pay close attention to these specific notches. Let me show you very simply how this works. If the notch is located on the top, or we can even call it a small tab, then it is definitely possible to convert the whole thing to a SATA interface. This is also exactly the case with this particular drive here. This was originally developed quite a bit earlier. The widespread NVMe craze and popularity only came much later. However, if the drive is indeed NVMe, then the physical tab is located specifically at the bottom, and you can't easily convert it to a SATA interface if someone wants to do that. So even though these adapters exist, if someone puts in an NVMe drive, or whatever other technical name you might prefer to call it, they'll find that it becomes a SATA interface. But if you put a traditional M.2 drive in here, it converts it nicely. See, this one could be converted nicely into a traditional SATA interface. This kind of SATA conversion is obviously useful if you have an older drive. Of course, you have to install it right here, connect a standard SATA cable, and you definitely don't have to throw it away. In the specific case of NVMe drives, I personally haven't seen a technical solution that would easily convert it to a SATA interface, so I think that's simply not possible at this time. But if you happen to know how to do it for any specific reason, please write it in the comments below. And someone might say, I don't buy from Chinese sites, so they won't trick me. That's basically a good attitude because if there's any kind of problem, at least you can take it back. However, I don't think it's a good solution to say after this that we won't buy anything from China. We might say not directly from China, but in reality, the stores are full of Chinese products. So, on the shelves of online stores, in quotation marks, those products are in most cases the ones that were manufactured in China. I rarely buy computer hardware directly from China, though, usually just power supplies, adapters, cables, things like that. I'm glad you came. Come back again. I'm looking forward to your comments. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, please subscribe. I'm always happy to have you. Goodbye to everyone watching,